As I was saying, and you probably couldn't hear me because I was on mute. So the challenges with going live is sometimes you don't have everything turned on. So, that's the beautiful thing about live is it's unscripted, it's free form, live without a net. That's a really good Van Halen concert video if you can find it anywhere. I highly recommend it. Used to listen to the audio version of it on airplanes all the time when I was flying back in the 80s and 90s and beyond. So, good Friday to you. Hopefully, you've had a great week. And if not, well, guess what? It's Friday. You get to reset and restart again. So that's one of the beautiful things about life is if you had a bad day, you get to do it all over again tomorrow. So everyone should focus on that, figure out why it went bad. And I think that's one of the things that we're seeing a lot these days is people are really having a tough go of it, and it's been kind of the norm. Seems like I've been saying that for the last 5+ years now, and nothing's changing, which doesn't surprise me because humans we get pretty set in our ways, and we don't like to change. We want things to be different, but we don't want to change, which is kind of an ironic statement when you think about it. So hopefully, again, you've been doing well. And I wanted to go live, and I think I'm going to start doing this on Fridays at 10 a.m. Hopefully, that's a good time for everybody. If not, I'm sure you can watch a recording somewhere, or I'll repurpose it. We'll figure all that out later. But it was important for me to, you know. In unison with the podcast show and the articles that you can read at breakfastleadership.com/blog. If you're not a reader of those articles, maybe you should check them out. There's all kinds of good insights and tips on a variety of different business related subjects. And of course, burnout. I can't escape that as much as I would love to. Nothing would make me happier as if no one was burning out anymore. I would be thrilled, ecstatic. But unfortunately, that's not the reality of it. It seems to be increasing, comes up with different names and titles and everything else, but it's coupled with workplace culture issues and all kinds of different things. So, anyway, I wanted to go live because I wanted to start just speaking what's on my mind, kind of outside of the podcast interviews that I've been doing with amazing thought leaders. And if for some reason you haven't been watching or listening to the podcast, where have you been? It's been on for almost 10 years. Come on, let's go. Actually, it's been 8 if I do the math right. And I used to be an accountant, so hopefully I can do math. Maybe that's why I'm not an accountant anymore. Side joke there. But anyway, uh, it's important for us to live our ideal life. So, right now, what I want you to do, if you can, is just close your eyes for a minute. Don't worry, I'm not going to make you do meditation. I'm not going to sneak up behind you. There's nobody in this room besides me that I'm aware of. Uh, but close your eyes for a moment and imagine what your ideal day would look like. Just think about it. What would it look like? What would it look like when you first woke up? What would it look like when you're sitting down for your first meal? Some people skip breakfast. Kind of breaks my heart. It's the name of my company. Don't skip breakfast. But some people do. You do you, whatever works for you. I'm not about to preach to tell you when you should eat and when you shouldn't, nor am I going to tell you what you should eat and what you shouldn't. But enough people will tell you that, and your body will definitely tell you that. But when your eyes are closed, think about that first meal. What is it? What does it taste like? How come you like it? What's so special about it? How do you feel when you're eating it, and maybe more importantly, how do you feel after you eat it? And then let's go a little bit further. Midday. How's your day been going? What have you been working on? Have you been working at all? Have you been relaxing? Or have you been outside? Have you been doing whatever? Just think about this. Again, this is your ideal day. You get to map out your day to make it the best day ever for you. And then as we get closer to the evening, what does that look like? Who are you with? Where are you? What are you doing? And then, towards the end of the evening, again, what are you doing? Are you watching something? Are you out with friends? What does this look like? So think about that. And then later on, write all those things down. And the reason why I want you to write them down, yeah, you could type them in your phone, but literally grab a writing utensil and a piece of paper and write those things down. And the reason why is you go, that would be the best day ever. And you could even write at the top of the page, best day ever. And then you look at that and you go, okay, how do I design a day to do that? Because guess what? You can. Unless you're working 7 days a week, or as the Beatles told us, 8, then okay. maybe, just maybe, uh, you're not having a good go of it, and that's something you need to take a look at. Too often we think, especially those of us that have burned out, present company included, we think we can work through it, and you can't. And a 2 week vacation isn't going to fix it either. I know a lot of people say, well, take time away. Yes, it's important for you to get time away, but it's also important for you to do something while you're away. You have to do on the work. It's like, why am I burning out? Why is this work situation so frustrating? Why do I feel overwhelmed? Why can't I meet obligations? Why is my performance slipping? All of these things come into play. Now, yes, we can point fingers at management or the company for not having proper staffing or maybe not being organized, but we also have skin in the game. We need to ask questions. And I think in many cases, people are afraid to ask questions because they don't want to lose their job, especially in economic times where things are a bit challenging, depending on where you are in the world. Maybe there isn't as many jobs available in the arena of work that you play in. So you have to kind of bite your lip and not say anything. That's not an ideal situation either, because what you're doing is you're shortchanging yourself. You're sabotaging yourself to protect from a potential loss. So you're making yourself miserable trying to prevent something that if you're miserable and you make mistakes at work, they're going to let you go anyway. So you're almost manufacturing your own demise when you're thinking about how bad things are. An exercise that I do a lot with people, it kind of mimics couples therapy in a way, is let's go back in time when you first started this job. You applied for it, if I recall. Maybe not. Maybe they recruited you and you just said, sure, why not? But in most cases, you probably applied for it. You went on interviews, hopefully no more than two or three, because those 10 interview things are absolutely just stupid ridiculous. So if you're an HR person, please stop that. It's ridiculous. If you don't know how to hire people, maybe find another career. There, I'll get off my soapbox on that. Maybe I'll do a live one day on that and lose a lot of friends, but that's okay. I got to speak my truth, as do you. But it boils down to finding out, okay, what did I love about this job? What went wrong? In your opinion, in your viewpoint. Now, remember, we bring baggage to work with us all the time. It was a book that I wrote several years ago with Dr. Arlene Battisil, and it was called Preemptive Strike Leadership. Uh, Organization's no longer in business. The book's still out there. We don't really market it. It's just one of those things there that is out there in case you're curious and you want to read it. Be more than happy to send Arlene some residuals from that if somebody buys it. No pressure, not asking you to. But one of the things that we talked about in that book is again, people bring baggage to work every day. You're personalized. Maybe you're a caregiver. Maybe your kids aren't listening to you. Maybe your spouse doesn't listen to you. Maybe your spouse is just not there anymore. Maybe they're checked out, or maybe they did leave and you're a single parent. So many different things going on in the world. Your economic situation, you've got more month than money. We've heard that phrase before. Maybe your rent's going up and you're going, how am I going to cover this increase when I'm not getting a raise at work because they don't have any extra money to give raises? So there's so many different external things that we bring to the table before we even sit down with our cup of coffee or tea to start work and log into Outlook and log into Teams, and then we realize, you know what, is this worth it? And I think a lot of people think that right now. And while I don't want mass exodus from every organization, it definitely brings up the point where I think we all need to have a conversation about work. What does it look like? What does organizations do? What are we? Who are we? Why is this important? One of the things I see a lot too with managers, and I'm going to cut some managers some slack here for a moment. I know you may have a bad manager, but I'm going to give them a little bit of grace here for a moment. The majority of managers were never trained on how to be a manager. They were amazing at what they did. That's how come they got promoted. But they're in a role that they have zero training on. It's like literally hiring somebody and going, guess what? You're going to fly this plane now. Now, we've seen stories of, a passenger safely landing a plane. The odds are not good for that to happen, okay? So why would you put somebody in a position that would be catastrophic? But businesses do it day after day after day. Here you go, you're a manager. You have to manage people. Good luck. We're all messy, every one of us. Like I said, we all got extra baggage, and we're not willing to pay the extra $50 a bag to put it on the plane. We want to use it in carry on. Doesn't fit in the overhead bins. I think I'm trying to think of the flight or the plane. It's a CRJ 900 or something like that. It's a real small plane. A lot of times I fly it when I'm flying a short distance somewhere. And even in first class, the overhead bins are absolutely tiny. Your wallet basically can fit in there. That's about it. I'm a little irritated with airlines doing it. I understand why they do it, but it's still frustrating. It's like, I'm gonna carry on something. I'm not just flying there for a morning and then turn around and flying back. Now, maybe a lot of people do, but when I do business travel, I'm usually there for a couple days anyway, just to give myself elbow room. But some people are flying in, flying out, which is really running with scissors because flight delays tend to happen from time to time. Anyway, got off on a tangent there for a minute. But again, you have to figure out why you like that job in the first place. Figure out why you don't like it now. Write down everything that you do in your work. Again, you noticing a trend here? I'm telling you to write things down. There's a reason. It's getting it out of your brain because you're stressing over it and ruminating over all of it, and it's bouncing around in your head constantly. So if you write it down, you can actually look at it and go, all right, that's a lot of work. Then, with all the work that you have assigned to you, you go to your manager and say, this is all the things that I'm working on. Can you help me prioritize what I should work on next? If they're a somewhat decent manager, they will recognize that they have given you too much. If they're not a good manager, they'll say, well, we just get things done here. Okay, great. Well, that's your cue to fire up resume.doc and find some other place that is in better alignment with what you want. Maybe you thrive in that type of environment. Awesome. That'd be cool if you did. But that's no way to get things done. And when we see, more than half of the businesses launched at the beginning of the pandemic are out of business, it doesn't bode well for companies. The biggest companies fail. I've seen there's a pharmaceutical company in San Diego that launched several years ago. They were worth, like 4 years ago, they were worth $6 billion. Not a tiny company. Okay. They're gone. They're out of business. So being worth $6 billion to crickets and an empty office. Hopefully somebody called to have the copier picked up for the lease that they had on it. I'm sure they probably got it by now. But that happens all the time. Big companies, small companies, everywhere in between. More than half of the Fortune 500 companies from the year 2000 are gone. And those are the big ones. Half of them are gone. Why? Mismanagement, not training people, not keeping their eye on what the customer needs, not creating an environment for people to thrive and grow. I see it time and time again. That's why you're seeing people burn out. That's why you're seeing people have low engagement scores whenever they do surveys. That's why you see all the big research firms saying, yeah, engagement is at an all time low. 7 or 8 out of 10 people would quit tomorrow if they had another job. Even a few years ago, 7 out of 10 CEOs were saying they're considering leaving their role. The captain of the ship wants to leave. Wow, what kind of place is it? They're actually leading the company and they want to leave. What does that say about work? What does that say about what everything's going on in life? It speaks volumes. There's a lot going on. We know about economic challenges. We know about global strife. We know about wars. We know about tariffs. We know all that stuff. Every bit of it, and I get it, is frustrating. But you have to ask yourself, what can I control as an individual? Can I control what percentage of tariffs my country is facing or sending to somebody? No, not really. I mean, okay, sure, I can vote, but that's every few years and doesn't really change the temperature on things. Maybe you feel that there's some benefits to it. Are there? Yeah, there you have, and that's one of the things when in this polarizing world, we tend to go very one-sided on things, and we don't seek to understand the other person's point of view. You want the other person to feel understood. I had a conversation earlier this week. It'll be on a future episode with Mick Todd. Be sure to catch that one. I mean, listen to them all, of course, but that one was really good. And Jim Fortin as well. I talked to Jim this week as well. It'll be a future episode. Both of them talked about neuroscience and the brain and how we think and how we can stop arguments and how we can be better with each other. And I think it's high time that we need to do that because the way we're doing things right now, unless you disagree with me, and you're perfectly fine to do that, um, things aren't going great, and it's frustrating for a lot of people, including me. I want things to be better for all of us. Why? Because the world will be better. We get better stuff. Products and quality control gets better. People are happier. They're healthier. They're not straining the healthcare system. As some of you may know, worked in primary care for almost 15 years, and um, you know the stories I see and the patients that I saw, and I wasn't a clinician. As I've said on my show many times, the only reason I passed science class in ninth grade was Mr. Burrell did not want to see me again. So thank you, Dan. I appreciate it. I still need to look and see if you're still around because I should send you a very, very belated thank you card for passing me because I certainly should not have passed that class. But statute of limitations, I have my diploma. So, but it's everything's connected. So when we're stressed out and our mind is overwhelmed with the negativity that we can easily find in this world, that's by design, unfortunately, um, that takes a toll on our physical body because our body has to process that stress. It comes in, and our brain's going, okay, what do I do with this? And it uses resources from other areas to deal with it, which means those other areas of your body aren't getting the proper attention that it needs. Hence, hypertension, high blood pressure, diabetes, you name it. The majority of the chronic diseases out there, stress is a factor in how they come to be. So if you have a stressful life, again, you are basically manufacturing future problems for yourself. Much like, and you probably can't hear it, my almost 7-month-old puppy barking like mad in the other room because he's abused, even though he's been fed, walked, all that stuff. He's good, but he likes to announce that he does not want to be in the crate. Which 7 months old, you belong in the crate, buddy, because you'll chew up everything. Have a puppy, they said. They're fun, they said. No, I love the guy, but my goodness. Uh, but again, going back to what we talked about, just you gotta take better care of yourself. And I know a lot of people are looking for opportunities to maybe go out on their own, be an entrepreneur. It's not an easy road, but I'm going to tell you, it's a very fulfilling one. At least it was for me. And I know a lot of entrepreneurs, and I've talked to tons of them over the years, all pretty much say the same thing. It was worth it because it allowed them to be creative. It was not well, I don't want to work for somebody because they're all jerks and they're bad bosses, and that's fine. But you got to be careful because eventually you're going to be a boss, and you may end up mimicking the behaviors that you saw, and that's not cool. So don't be the person you complain about. Be who you're meant to be. But I highly encourage if you are interested in becoming an entrepreneur, there's just go on my show and or even articles on the Breakfast Leadership website, breakfastleadership.com/blog, and take a look at some things. Just you can search for entrepreneur, or you can message me and I can give you some tips. This week as well, actually, it dropped this morning. I had an interview with the amazing Vivian Well. She's down in Miami area, crushing it, like 100 million plus annual revenue in sales, businesses, the Lambos, you name it. Now, some people love Lambos. I'm like, I'm at an age, if I've been down to get in there, am I going to be able to get back up? And does that come with like a lift kind of thing? I'm more, active than that. But there are days where I'm like, I don't know if my back could handle that. I'm more the SUV up, up. Of course, Lamborghini sells an SUV too, so I could always go that route. But if I'm going to be buying an expensive SUV, it's going to rhyme with Bentley. But anyway, I rarely drive. So, which is kind of blasphemy for somebody being from Detroit that I don't drive, but I drive occasionally on the weekends, kind of thing. But it's like, well, the work I do, I don't need a car. I live in an area that has this thing called amazing transit and transportation. So it's like, why am I going to pay for a car to sit in a parking lot for the majority of the week and use it for maybe an hour or two a week? Financially is dumb. I've taken that money and put it into other adventures, which has made me money. So do as you will. If you're in the middle of nowhere, I say that tongue in cheek, but if you're in an area that doesn't have transit, like if you're in the country or something like that, of course you're going to need a vehicle because you have to drive into town to go to the market and do everything that you want to do in life. So yeah, you're going to need some kind of transportation. So I'm not anti-car by any stretch, but for me, definitely is something that made perfect sense for me to free up a parking spot because that way don't have to deal with all of that and don't have to get those emails. Time for your oil change. No, it's not. I don't have a car. Thanks though, appreciate it. But anyway, back to Vivian. Listen to the show. It's an inspiring story. I mean, obviously, she talks about all kinds of different things, but it wasn't that long ago that she was, spoiler alert here. She was living in an apartment with her child, 14th floor, and she was 3 months behind in her rent. And her lease was coming up. Her lease was up, and in order to get a new lease, she had to obviously catch up on the rent, which she was slowly trying to do. But every time you renew a lease in that apartment building, your fob that enters the building gets disconnected. So she couldn't take. You had to use the fob to use the elevator, so she had to take the stairs all the time. So little kid, her lugging up groceries and whatever, 14 flights every day, and now she's running $100 million plus operation in a very short time. What did she have? The words grit, determination, I'm mad as hell, I'm not going to take this anymore kind of attitude. And that's all within us. And a lot of it, and this goes back to the conversation that I had with Jim Fortin this week. um, it's the stories, and Mick Todd as well. It's the stories that we tell ourselves. It's the stories that we were told at a very early age that gets programmed in our mindset. That's why you see some people get stuck and never can break through things, because a lot of it was the programming and the beliefs that they were taught at a very early age, and they've carried those through their entire lives. And a lot of those beliefs, it's hard to hear, are not true. They're not true for you anymore. They may have never been true for you. But again, those episodes will be coming up in the next few weeks, so definitely make sure to give those a listen. If you're working with an organization that you would identify as being toxic, there's some resources that we have. Just go to community.breakfastleadership.com. There's a group you can actually get a PDF copy of. Sales plug here. Oh, you can't see it because of the fake screen. I got a wall behind me. I'm not standing in an empty office in Manhattan or anything like that. But the book is called Workplace Culture. Ironic. And guess what's it about? Workplace culture. It's a fairly quick read, but it goes into the challenges we're facing and how to approach them to maybe change the temperature a little bit. Yeah, you can pick up a copy of it at community.breakfastleadership.com. If you're burning out or you are burned out, and for fun and games, I'll read you the World Health Organization definition of burnout. I have it hanging up right over here. It's burnout is a syndrome conceptualized as resulting from chronic workplace stress that has not been successfully managed. It is characterized by three dimensions, not 3D, but three dimensions: feelings of energy depletion or exhaustion, increased mental distance from one's job, or feelings of negativism or cynicism related to that job, and also reduced professional efficiency. I've probably described about 90% of the workforce, but that's what it is. That's the World Health Organization's definition of burnout. They added it to an ICD code, ICD-11, which is a disease registry code. They did not classify burnout as a disease. They classified it as a workplace phenomenon. But the fact that they classified it and put it in an ICD registry, and this is the World Health Organization, politics aside, they're here to observe health and outcomes and things like that across the globe. So I take what they say seriously when it comes to, especially, paying attention to burnout. So it's a big deal. Now, if any of those things that I just said resonates with you and sounds like, yeah, I think I might be burned out, just go to freefromburnout.com. So free, FREE, from, FROM, burnout.com. And again, you can get a copy of my book, Burnout Proof. Guess what it's about? Becoming burnout proof. Check it out. I don't want people burning out. I would much rather not have anybody burned out because it robs society, families, friends, companies, everybody when someone's burned out because they're just not themselves. They're not being their best. They're not producing their best. We all suffer because people are burning out, and I think as a society we need to do something about it. And this work will definitely help with that. So thank you for your time today. Time is one of those commodities we do not get back. So I appreciate you spending a little bit of time with me this morning. I'm going to do these on Friday mornings. It's important for me to kind of debrief from my own week, and it's good for me as well to kind of revisit how my week went when it came to the conversations that I get to have and the articles that we've shared and everything else. So I trust you have a great weekend. I hope you have a great weekend. Spend time with those that you love, even if it's just yourself, because it's important for you to love yourself. So until next time, be well.